What happens to a soldier who runs away from the heat of a battle? I watched it destroy a good man during our deployment in Afghanistan, and it's something that still haunts our entire unit. Private First Class Rodriguez was a solid soldier for the first 8 months of our deployment. Good with his weapon, followed orders, got along with everyone in the squad. Nothing suggested he'd crack under pressure. The incident happened during a firefight outside Kandahar. We were on routine patrol when insurgents hit us with a coordinated ambush. Heavy machine gun fire, RPGs, the whole nightmare scenario we'd trained for. The engagement lasted about 20 minutes. Most of us found cover and returned fire while calling for air support. Standard battlefield procedure that Rodriguez had practiced hundreds of times. But something snapped in Rodriguez when the first RPG exploded near our position. He dropped his weapon, stood up, and just started running away from the fight. Not tactical movement, just blind panic running toward the rear while his squad was still under fire. Sergeant Williams screamed for him to get back, but Rodriguez kept running until he disappeared over a ridge. Left his rifle, his gear, his brothers in the middle of a firefight. We held our position and eventually drove off the attackers, but Rodriguez was gone. Found him 3 hours later hiding behind supply trucks, shaking and completely incoherent. The consequences were swift and brutal. Rodriguez was charged with desertion in the face of the enemy, cowardice, and abandoning his post. Court-martial proceedings started within a week. He was sentenced to reduction in rank, forfeiture of all pay, and a bad conduct discharge. But that was just the beginning. The real destruction was psychological. Rodriguez went from being part of a tight-knit squad to being completely isolated. Nobody would eat with him, talk to him, or acknowledge his existence. He spent his remaining weeks doing menial labor while waiting for discharge processing, kitchen duty, latrine cleaning, trash pickup, all the jobs nobody else wanted. The worst part was watching him deteriorate mentally. Rodriguez knew he'd failed his brothers when they needed him most, and the shame was eating him alive. By the time his discharge came through, Rodriguez was barely functional. Lost 30 pounds, couldn't sleep, jumped at every loud noise. Classic PTSD symptoms made worse by complete social isolation. The day he left, Rodriguez tried to apologize to our squad one last time. Said he knew he'd let us down and would regret it for the rest of his life. Nobody responded. We just watched him load his duffel bag onto the transport truck and disappear forever. 6 months later, we heard Rodriguez had committed suicide back home. Couldn't find work with a bad conduct discharge, couldn't live with what he'd done. Running from one battle cost Rodriguez everything. His career, his honor, his brothers, and eventually his life.